This is Hemet.
And Jessica.
And you're listening to the Friendly Atheist Podcast. Please go to patreon.com/Friendly Atheist Podcast to support the show. And the reason this one's coming out later is I was thinking, why don't we wait to find out who wins and then talk about that? And then the run-on election is still going.
The hubris of this man.
I know, that was a dumb idea by my end. So I do actually have stories written down, and I realize we're not going to end up talking about any of this because we'll end up just talking about the election if they call anything, or they won't, because I've been saying that for 4 days. And
I talked to you 24 hours ago, and we usually record at noon on Fridays. And I was like, do you think they'll call it? And you're like, yeah. I think
that is exactly how I said it too.
That's how he talks when he's off the podcast. You guys don't know this about him. It's a really snooty voice.
Yeah, it's true.
My friend Anne texted me at, I think, 8 or 8:30 this morning and was like, get up, they about to call this. She kept texting me because she knew I was still asleep.
You'll be so proud of me. I actually got a bottle of something to drink. No, I know. I don't do this sort of thing on my own, thinking Tuesday, this will be great.
Uh-huh.
And then nothing happened on Tuesday, and it was apocalyptic. And I'm like, well, now I have a reason for this. And now it's almost gone because it's been 3 days.
Dang,
and I have nothing going on except watching it and thinking it's about to happen, drink, and then I just go to sleep. And then the next day, and so I have about 2 more days of it left, I think, but
okay,
it'll be gone soon.
Don't worry.
I was thinking, we're not going to give anyone updates because it'll be outdated by the time this comes out. But if anything interesting happens, we'll comment, I guess. Some questions for you. I think the most helpful thing for me, seeing what this week has been, the comment that I heard is for anyone doom scrolling about the Democrats, because they lost some House seats while keeping the majority. They didn't yet regain the Senate, and that's in doubt. But they lost all the toss-ups pretty much.
Uh-huh.
But they could still pull it off. It's mathematically possible. And obviously the presidency looks like it's in Biden's favor and stuff. But the thing that I was thinking is, if you could go back to Monday and say, look, Biden's going to win. You lose some House seats, you keep the majority. And who are you losing in the House? It's probably the moderates in swing districts, not the progressive champions that you want.
Right.
And, the Senate is iffy. Would you take that bet? And I feel like pretty much everyone who thinks the way we do would have said, look, if you get Trump out, I don't care what the hell happens anywhere else. If we get to keep the House, I mean, good. And the Senate, okay, disappointing, yes. But at least if there's a chance to get 50 seats, at least, fine. If the deal is I won't get 57, but I'll get hopefully 50, maybe, a chance of that, I would take that bet. And I mean, the way someone put it, many people have put it this way, is right now we're waiting on a handful of states that, because of the mail-in votes and stuff, it's taking a while to count. Let's say everyone just announced the things on Tuesday, and Georgia came back as a Biden win, and Pennsylvania came back as a Biden win, and it's Florida, there's Florida being Florida, it didn't go for him. We would be having a different conversation entirely, saying, holy shit, Joe Biden did extremely well compared to definitely 2016, but even beyond what some people might have thought. And I think right now part of the narrative that I've been seeing is they didn't do as well as they needed to with this group or that group, which may be true, but also misses the bigger picture.
Yeah, but only Democrats can pull a defeat out of the jaws of victory. That
is also something I've heard, right? Democrats appear to be on the verge of victory and they're acting like they're defeated.
Oh my God.
Trump is acting like I won. What are you all talking about?
So deeply frustrated. And I listen, I'm not here to dance on the 1 yard line, right? I'm not. We've got a bottle of champagne that I will not fucking pop until the AP calls it.
Yeah.
But and I'm a mess of nerves. I'm so anxious. I almost fell asleep on the couch because sometimes when I get really stressed out, I just get sleepy. And then I woke up for this stupid podcast. But all I have to say is we are on a pretty good track. Is it the ultimate? We took the House, we took the Senate, we kept the House, we took the Senate, we took the presidency. No, of course not. Did I want to see a
total rebuke of everything? And it's not like 70 million almost Americans are like, what? 250,000 people dead from a pandemic we could have avoided if we were smarter people in charge. And it's like, nope, still voting for that. Don't care. Kids in cages doesn't bother me. I'm a Christian.
Yeah, I mean, it was
surrounded by.
That was sort of my election night thing that I took away, was how deeply disappointed I was that Trump somehow did better. We had crazy
constituencies for sure.
Well, we had crazy election turnout this year, as of right now. So it's 8:00 on Friday night. Yeah. As of now, Biden has already surpassed Obama in both 2008 and 2012 as the top popular vote getter of all time. Right. So obviously, whatever, population grows and whatever, but it was such a rousing display of civic duty that it actually made me really happy. Yes, most people, a lot of people, I absolutely disagree. I'm extremely impressed by how the vote was turned out. And the fact that, the day before, the week before, I don't know if you are like this, but I'm like, should I have done more? What could I have done that was more? Yeah. Of course, that's just always how I think of everything. But the reality is, because it is as close as it is in these swing states, anybody who did any kind of volunteering, if you text banked, if you phone banked, feel good about this. You made a substantial difference, and whatever, we're doing the work. Also, weird hat tip to libertarians, because there's been a couple states where the Republicans lost by just about the margin of people who voted libertarian. So,
welcome to our world, where a third-party candidate who's not going to win takes just enough.
Right, exactly.
I'll take it for once. And obviously, there looks to be 2 Senate seats in Georgia that will be up for grabs, which means for the next 2 months, if you didn't do anything for the election,
there's more to do.
Yeah, and now here's maybe the good thing, and this is where maybe I'm getting too optimistic and hopeful. We know we know Democrats in Georgia can turn out. We know they could always do more because everyone knows how to second guess everything.
Right.
Imagine what happens when everyone is turned to one state and not a gazillion little fires to put out.
Yeah.
And on top of not only, right now Democrats have 48 Senate seats. Their 2 still have yet to be called. Which, let's say they lose them, they have a chance to get to 50, which is what they have to have. Right. And those are the 2 in Georgia. Not only is that impetus, if Biden is officially declared the winner, he can't get shit done unless you have this. So Democrats will have a reason to get their shit together. And Republicans will not have Trump on the ticket. You think a lot of people give a shit about Senate races? No, but they do care about Trump if you're one of his voters. And so, it's not like Trump's going to be campaigning for those 2. He doesn't give a shit. If he's gone, he's going to be like, all right, I'm out of here. Let me go focus on my new podcast or whatever.
I definitely have heard just not rumors, but speculation that maybe he's going to ghost us. When if Trump loses, he is going to go down to Mar-a-Lago for Thanksgiving and just never come back.
Which is great. I'll take it, because the other side of that is he stays in the White House and steals all the plates over the next 2 months and just starts storing it away, because he's like, what are you going to do now? I have power for another month and a half.
The silver lining of this, I discovered about 20 minutes ago after, again, can't express enough, napping on my couch. The silver lining is that every day that Trump hasn't officially lost is a day fewer that he can fuck us up during his lame duck term.
That is very true. And also keep in mind, there's a lot of shit he could do if he wanted to. He could say, "Oh, I'm resigning. I'm going to make Mike Pence the new president for like a day. And by the way, Mike Pence, I need you to pardon everyone here in exchange for you getting to be president in the history books for a day." Like, there's a lot of shit he could pull right now. And that is scary to think about. But the bigger picture is, I mean, I think the other side of that is he's also very incompetent. I mean, maybe the best thing about his presidency is he was too stupid to be worse than he already was.
100%.
And so, I mean, if he's gone, but okay, going back to the positive side of this, the reason I'm somewhat hopeful about Georgia is yes, they're going to have all the money they need if they know how to use it. You have all the people in the world who want Mitch McConnell out of power who will focus their energy there. You will have Republicans who are not probably not as eager to do much of anything to help them out. Like maybe senators will, but Trump isn't going to be out there campaigning.
And nor does his campaign mean that much anymore. He's
you think he's going to do
quite a
something
few
nice
people
for other people? Maybe he'll do rallies, but again, spreading COVID to Republicans isn't going to help the Senate race.
Well, but I'm saying even if he does do a rally, like how many of his endorsed candidates have lost over the last 4 years? Like having President Trump back you up does not mean a lock in your district.
Right. Not necessarily. So we'll see how that goes. There's so much to be decided. Let me talk about this because this came up too. This was a question that I was dying to know before the election, and we have a little bit of data about it now, which is what do we know about the Christians, the conservative Christians who voted for him? Because in 2016, the number that came out was that about 80 to 81% of white evangelicals voted for Trump. And that was shocking at the time because, like, he doesn't represent the values you claim to hold. So what the hell are you all doing? And the question now is what was going to happen this time? Because now we know what he's done. And could you peel off any percentage of those white evangelicals? Or like all what Robert Jeffress on Fox News was saying is like, no, it'll be even higher. Ralph Reed of the another religious right figure was like, no, it'll be mid 80s this time around. So here's what we know so far. This is from, there's a couple different exit polls. I don't know how much stock to put in this because, I mean, if we learned nothing else from the election dates, polling is off. And what are you going to do? But one in the New York Times said that about 76% of white evangelicals or white born-again Christians back Donald Trump, which is significantly less than the 81% he got years ago. So it's a little less. I mean, it's still shocking and frightening as hell that 76% of them were like, oh, kids in cages? Yeah, sure, doesn't bother me. But it's a little
get enough
lower.
Of those kids in cages.
It's a little lower. I think there was one other survey that said it was probably like 81 or 82%, which if you say just statistical deviation there's something, it's about the same. But it didn't go significantly higher. It basically stayed or maybe dropped a few points. And so here's a question for you. Like, what does that tell you now about white evangelicals, like those non-denominational Christians that maybe you didn't know before? Because I know we've said a lot about them over the past 4 years, but does the fact that they still back Trump add anything to our understanding of who they are?
No, I mean, we've seen who they are, right? Like, they're willing to sacrifice anything that you and I would consider a moral high ground for, I mean, it's single issue voters, right? They're anti-choice and that's all they care about. So no,
they're anti-choice and they're pro-judge, and Trump delivered on those things in terms of the judges. And so they're like, all right, we don't care about anything else you've ever done, even while president. So we'll support you because you gave us the judges we wanted, and now we will be able to overturn abortion laws. Is that, I mean, yes, we knew that going into it. It looks like nothing Trump has done has changed their minds about it.
No, I mean, listen, they can say they are whatever they are. They are conservative more than they are God-fearing. They're conservative more than they believe kindness means anything. All they care about is conservative values and like hashtag owning the libs.
You know what? There was a New York Times article that put it this way: white evangelicals are a political bloc with a religious past.
Yeah,
And
I think that's a really
seems to
good.
be perfect. They used to be religious and care about that stuff, and now it's all about the Republican Party. And that summed it up perfectly and briefly. And
Yeah, and that's not to say that they as a group are not still religious, but their values are not anything that looks Christian anymore.
yeah, and their values don't guide who they are or what they do. They might say they're for, I don't know, sanctity of marriage, or they might say they're about protecting the vulnerable and caring for strangers and stuff. But when it comes down to who they're voting for, it's the people who make them suffer even more.
Well,
So it's like, so what are they guided by? They're guided by Republican politics and not the Bible.
I mean,
and I know we know this, but
yeah, I think to succinctly put it, I would say that the white evangelical vote is not pro anything. They are anti-choice. They're anti-immigrant. They're anti-education. They're
anti-woman,
anti-woman, anti-queer, obviously writ large.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is very
they're
little
pro-gun,
that they're
though. Very pro-gun.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. Anyway,
one thing that I'm hoping, I don't know if you can even say there's a silver lining to this administration, but the silver lining to the Christian support for Trump may be that if Trump is out of power and he's no longer in the White House and doesn't have the ability to appoint more judges, this now becomes like an albatross around their necks for generations to come, because they can never, I mean, they'll try, but they can never seriously say we're the moral majority. They can never say, being Christian, being religious is a virtue. Faith is a virtue. Be like us and you'll have the moral high ground. No, you can't get away with that anymore. It also means that everything people like us have been saying about them for 4 years and much longer than that even, but everything we've been saying about them, that they're hypocrites, that they are cruel, that they don't care about racism, that they're not bothered by injustice, we were right. And now we have the receipts for that. I mean, we did before too, but they could always say, like, don't listen to them. They're haters. They're against God, whatever. It's easy to point to Trump now and say, here's what you did when evil was staring you in the face. You said, how do I join the team? And I hope that sticks with them, because like Trump will be able to backpedal from all this, and all of his people who surround him will find their CNN jobs and get lecturing professorships at different schools. Yeah. But the Christian leaders who backed him will now have to pull like a Lindsey Graham, where they have to just be like, oh no, I was against all that. I totally was against the stuff he did. And like, no, you didn't. We know what you did when he was in power. And I hope people hold that against Christians for a long time to come.
Well, and like it or not, almost everything they've said in the last 4 years has been on Twitter or on Facebook or on camera or wherever. Like, there is no hiding from what they've done. And I think the interesting thing that's happened over the last 4 years, and you'd probably, I don't know if you have this locked and loaded, but I think we're seeing the number of people who think morality is only religious has dropped greatly.
I don't have the number, but I think that sounds about right. Like, you don't need religion. You don't need God to be good. That's totally true.
So that, coupled with the fact that we have seen the quote-unquote moral majority as a group behave like monsters.
Yeah, they're not moral. They're not the majority anymore. Yeah. Ha, ha, ha.
And they can no longer just say that. And they can no longer accuse people of being atheists or whatever and expect that to land. Like, people don't give a fuck as much anymore.
Yeah. And they're still doing it, by the way. I've been watching them this week, and it's the Christian leaders, the ones that show up on cable news shows like Fox News, the ones that are still, they have been part of like his evangelical advisory board. They're the ones pretending like there's voter fraud, which like there's no evidence that anyone has seen yet.
Well, isn't this election a nice lesson in skepticism? It's James Randi's last hurrah of these people are so fucking credulous that one person is like, there's voter fraud, and they're like, oh, there must be voter fraud, and
Yeah,
like it's literally, I've seen it just on Facebook or whatever. Like everybody is into it.
A debate people were having tonight. Someone else mentioned this. There's a website, I forgot what it's called, like trumpaccountability.org or something. But basically the idea is they made like a website that says, here are the people who were part of his administration. Here are the people who were complicit in the stuff he did, the Stephen Millers, the press secretaries, all of them. And so, and the goal is to say, I'm sure, like, assuming he loses and he leaves and all that stuff, like, take his press secretary right now, Kayleigh McEnany. I'm sure she will find a way to get on some like Fox News show and she'll be a host of something. Or a lot of these people will get a lot of money to write books about their time in the Trump administration. And those books will all read the same way. They'll say, I was the voice of reason here, but he wouldn't listen to me, but I tried. Or it's a defense of like why the things they did were good. And the idea behind those websites is do not let people forget what they took part in and what they didn't quit over any of this stuff that Trump did. Mm-hmm. It's not a list of like, let's jail these people. It's a list of like, this is who they are. This is what they did. Don't let them pretend like they weren't part of all this, because they will absolutely try to whitewash their own history, which to me makes sense. Like, as someone who blogs and relies on screenshots and relies on video taken 4 or 5 years ago that shows something completely different than what you're doing now, it's like, no, you can't forget what they did, because they will want to ignore the stuff they did that was awful, and we shouldn't let them forget it. And by the way, I understand people make mistakes, and I get that people might, you can't just hold something stupid someone did when they were younger against them forever. I believe that. But also these are like adults and old people. And also, like, whatever, Kayleigh McEnany is probably in her 20s or something. She's not young in that sense. And again, you can't atone for your mistakes if you refuse to admit you were part of the problem. And so that to me made a lot of sense. And yet part of the pushback I'm seeing from the classical liberal crowd, the crowd of like I am a true liberal and that's why I support, like, I don't know, not necessarily Trump, but they don't like liberal, like AOC. They hate AOC, stuff like that. They're all like, how dare you make a list? That is McCarthyism or some shit like that.
No.
It's like, again, this isn't some list of like Trump voters and you're going to hold it against them forever. It's the people who signed off on this stuff that he did and who backed him up on it and who went on TV and explained why it was necessary. And again, I'm not saying they have no chance to atone for their mistakes, but we better know what they're atoning for.
But that's the key. That's the key to it. Of like these people aren't persona non grata necessarily just because of what they've done in these last 4 years. I'd say in a lot of cases, yes, they are. But if they want to try to get themselves back on the side of truth and
the quote unquote right side of history,
right, then they have to at least admit what they said was wrong and offer up some kind of an explanation of how they've changed and how they're not going to make the same mistake again.
Like, Sean Spicer was on Dancing with the Stars, and Scaramucci was like on cable TV shortly after. And I think both of them have had plenty of chances to already like rehabilitate their image. Remember, like, shortly after Spicer lost his job as press secretary, I think Stephen Colbert was hosting the Emmys or something and did a sketch where Sean Spicer came out pretending to be Melissa McCarthy. Like, right. And that was infuriating. Why? Because they were like, haha, look at this joke that even Sean Spicer is in on. What a good sport he is. And it's like, why are you trying to make him look good after he just spent like months lying to everybody and defending a guy who's just bullshitting everybody? Again, you don't have to like tar and feather the guy, but stop acting like he's hilarious or stop acting like he's in on the joke and this is all just a fun and game thing to all these people. That's what was so maddening about that. That to me is like, that's what I don't want to see happen with the Trump thing. Like, I don't want to see, what's her face? Ivanka Trump getting some cushy gig.
I mean, she's going to.
She is, and that's like,
I
again,
guarantee you.
if it's within some conservative news outlet or Trump thing, like whatever, fine. I'm sure they'll believe her. But if it's with some quote unquote credible outlet, like, no, people need to raise a fuss about that thing. How dare you give her money because you think her memoir will make money?
Can I float a prediction?
Mm-hmm.
I think at some point in the next, say, 2 years, so say election day 2022, the midterms, I bet Ivanka is going to get a job on The View or something similar to The View. That's what I'm laying down right now. I'm not happy about it.
I can't even be on the other side of that. I would
Right?
believe
Doesn't that sound
so
like
easily.
the next logical thing?
Yeah. Yeah. And so anyway, what were we talking about? Oh, right. Evangelicals in this election.
Yeah.
I want evangelical Christians as a brand to, how do I say this nicely? I want them to suffer. I want their churches.
I'm sorry, that was you phrasing it nicely.
Yes, I want their churches to like be forever remembered. And by the way, I've seen some articles. I haven't seen necessarily hard numbers on this. Some articles that basically say a lot of younger Christians who would call themselves evangelicals and would normally go to those mega churches and are devout and they do believe this stuff, who are saying, I just can't get on board with Trump. Like, does anyone else see what I'm seeing? Like, doesn't he go against all this stuff we're learning about and promoting? Like, there's nothing about him that shouts role model. So, like, I may still be an evangelical Christian, but I can't be a Republican right now with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And they're leaving those churches and they're not becoming atheists. They're just leaving those churches. And it's like, yes, that is what I want to see happening. It's not about what you believe. It's about what you're doing with it. And if your church doesn't have the decency to, and this is not political, but if you can't use your church to say what Trump is doing is immoral, by the way, that's a legal thing to do. That's not saying go vote for Biden, which I don't want them to do, but saying like, this is awful. We as Christians ought to speak up about this and fight against it. And there are Christians who are doing that, but not these evangelical churches. Virtually none of them, none of the big ones have gone out and done anything against what Trump is doing. Like, I want those churches to just die a quick death. And I want them to have no money because they don't have new young blood coming in because they're the Trump church. Mm-hmm. Like, I hope that it won't happen, but I hope it happens. Like, that would be a nice thing, like that these Christians glommed onto Trump because they wanted judges and they got those judges. And then like Trump became the thing that dragged them down. And then a Democratic Senate expanded the court and made the whole judge thing pointless anyway.
Well, I mean, we're not expanding the court if we don't at least get something out of Georgia.
Know. Georgia needs to happen now.
Right? Yeah, I'm just so tired. Aren't you tired?
I literally physically tired after this week, but also, yes, I'm tired after 4 years of this shit.
Mm-hmm.
I have had someone say, like, you must be excited if Biden is president, but, like, you won't have anything to write about.
That's
like,
not true.
Oh, buddy. Oh, man. There's so much shit all the time. The fire hose will go down a notch.
Yeah.
It's not going to end.
I do think about a lot of, when I started writing for you in 2012, I think about the shit that we wrote about, which is not to say that it was insignificant and not worth writing about, but the like consequence level of that versus this. Like, yeah. I remember I was reading like old tweets and I remember, God, we already talked about this guy, but who's the guy who lost to Claire McCaskill?
Todd Aiken.
Todd Aiken was like our big bad in 2012
because he said women have a way of preventing pregnancy if they get raped. Whatever
Todd
the phrase
Aiken
he used was.
A senator from Missouri.
Oh, if it's a legitimate rape, yeah, that's.
If it's a legitimate rape. He was our like evil villain in 2012 that you and I were watching of like, this guy can't get back into the Senate or whatever he was dealing with. Like, imagine if our biggest problem in 2020 was one Republican senator saying something stupid. Yep.
And now it's Oh no, we'll take that any day. That's
Oh my
just,
God.
we expect that. It was weird. I posted a story today. It was about a woman in Florida, just an activist, regular Christian activist, who went to Florida to register to get a petition. I think she wants to get like a constitutional amendment, like on a future ballot, that sort of thing. But basically to get prayer back in public school.
Oh,
And
fuck off.
there's a lot of reason to just say like this isn't going to get
Man, read the
anywhere.
room. We're busy.
That too. But I was just thinking, like, normally that would be a bigger story. And now I'm like, just what are you doing? Just stop it. Go away. You're not important right now.
Adults are talking.
But yeah, like that should have been a bigger deal. And it never is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is my greatest fear. Feels very melodramatic, but my kind of overarching fear is that there will be zero consequence. Like, I'm afraid of another 2008 financial meltdown where they put on some band-aids, didn't hold anybody accountable, even though there were people who definitely could hold to account. I'm kind of and I understand why Biden or a Biden administration would be interested in saying, like, we're not going to try to prosecute Trump or his ilk. Like, we just want to move forward. And I do get that instinct of like,
Let's
we cannot
move on.
Exactly. And I get that. And I'm somewhat sympathetic toward that viewpoint. But also, what if there's just no consequences for anybody again? And then we just demonstrate to adults and children alike that there's no consequences in the real world. If you're a white dude and you're like putting your thumb on the scale of democracy, nobody's going to give a fuck if you can get away with it. And even if you don't get away with it, probation maybe.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing happens, I mean, I hope he just gets a badass attorney general and says, you do whatever you want. I'm not part of it. And then just let them do their job.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's all he needs to do.
Yeah, I haven't even done like fantasy cabinet stocking.
I know it's too early.
It's too early, but
okay, here's the question. This was floated by some people online, which was saying you find the nearest Republican, swing state Republican, maybe on the verge of retiring, and say, like, I'll give you a cabinet position if you leave, because then your governor can appoint a Democrat. And you give it to, but like, there's only a handful of those even left. And I think in North Carolina, where Richard Burr is a senator, the governor has to appoint someone from the same party. That's a law in the state. But it is that sort of, hey, I need Mitch McConnell out of the way. What can I do to make that happen?
Yeah, that was a big blow on election night.
I know. Just watching like Sarah Gideon and Teresa Greenfield like lose those races. That again, there's going to be a huge reckoning on why every polling outlet was just totally wrong on those races, like statewide, district-wide. How many they thought it would be an expanding House majority for Democrats. Turned out to be you lose a lot of House seats, maybe like 10 House seats almost. Everyone was wrong. And it's not that they're all lying. It's that this is what their better data showed. But if you don't know what you're supposed to be looking for, which was clearly the case again, how do you fix that? And I don't know what the answer is yet.
Yeah. This is kind of out of yours and my purview is polling. And like, I would go to smarter people than us for that. But it is troublesome. And I mean troublesome not in like a conspiratorial way, but like something is up. It is troublesome that two major, like, I'm trying to think, 2018 wasn't the blue wave we necessarily, it was definitely a blue wave. We definitely obviously took the House, but it wasn't to the extent that we all kind of collectively thought it was. 2016, 2020, like they being every pollster. This isn't just like New York Times doing a poll. This is like candidates doing internal polling. Something is fucking up. So,
well, in 2016, they said we didn't really give enough weight to certain groups. They accommodated for that this time around, and they're still off by a lot. And again, the problem is, if even the candidates think they're up by a certain amount, they're going to make advertising decisions based on all that. And if it's all off, then you're shooting in the dark. Like, you don't know where this stuff is going.
Not to mention, outside an election, those polls, they weigh into policy that's made. If 75% of respondents say that abortion should be outlawed in all cases, that is going to have an impact on the decisions people make. And if that's not true, then we're just making shit up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'll be curious to see what they say. How do you fix that problem? I mean, I don't know what the answer is.
I don't either. And
Um,
I don't think you and I are the ones who are going to
yeah.
crack this case.
This is a totally random non-election story, but I wanted to get your take on it because I found it
I haven't thought about
fascinating.
non-election stuff in years.
I know. I wrote a couple of these down thinking we're never going to get to these, and we'll try. Okay.
We are.
Did you hear that there is a wage gap and women make less money than men, even when they're doing the same kind of work? Did you know this?
I have heard that. Yes, I'm familiar.
So there's a couple of researchers, Dr. Tracy Sitzman, Dr. Elizabeth Campbell. They published a paper this week that basically said, look, I'm going to paraphrase it. Don't quote me on this, but basically they're saying, look, in nations and states that are more religious than their counterparts, the wage gap is actually worse.
In more
there's a lot of more religious places, women earn significantly less than men do. And there's a lot of reasons for that. It could, just think of a few of the reasons that might be the case. There's a mindset that is patriarchal. Women are expected to churn out babies and stay at home. They're stereotypically not considered for more demanding jobs.
Yeah,
and religions might prevent you from taking on certain jobs.
Yeah, and beyond that, like you said, beyond the women getting paid less for doing the same job is fields like nursing and teaching and all that stuff are not traditionally super high paying jobs and traditionally are held by women. So like that contributes to everything as well.
Yeah.
Because for some reason we don't think nurses are important, I guess.
Right. And so they're saying, look, we know there's a wage gap. The data shows there's a wage gap. And in religious states, the wage gap is higher. And and by the way, they've also said over time, like over the past decade or so, in pretty much everywhere, the wage gap has shrunk. And part of that is more people are aware of it. More states and countries have made laws trying to prevent such a thing from happening. So things have gotten better. Mm-hmm. What they found is that the wage gap shrinking, which you want to see, has been a lot slower in the more religious states. Now, that's also kind of intuitive, I think, if you're coming at it from that perspective that, a patriarchal culture is going to have a higher wage gap. Okay, none of that is all that surprising. Here's what they said. They said, how much is that actually worth? How much does religion contribute to the wage gap? And the way they did the math, and I'm just making up a number here, but like if men make like $100,000 and women correspondingly for the same job make like $79,000, mm-hmm. How much of that $21,000 gap can be attributed to religion? That's the question they were trying to figure out. And here's what they found. When you take into account all these variables, they said religion represents a $1,734 loss in annual wages for full-time female employees. So prayer costs women $1,700 a year compared to men on average, which I've never seen a number put to it.
Sure.
But it was very interesting to see, not just saying, here's what the gap is, it's saying, here's how much money women lose because they live in more religious societies. Mm-hmm. I'll post the paper online if anyone's curious about reading that.
Yeah, that's another one of those things that can't come up a lot, it seems, on this show of like, you tell me a stat, and I'm like, yeah, of course. Like,
Things do suck. I agree.
I would have guessed that, but I wouldn't have thought to like make a study out of it.
Yeah, it was fascinating. I emailed the researcher as soon as I saw it. I'm like, I need this paper. None of my usual like channels will find me your paper right now. And
speaking of your special channels, at like 3:30, you were like, they're about to call Georgia. Can you talk about what the fuck happened with your sources?
My sources are made up and they exist entirely in my head, and I have none. You act like I talk to people for fun, but I was saying like I went to the
You don't.
I was looking up this paper and I went to the whatever journal it was in and they're like pay us and I'm like no and I go to Sci-Hub
Fuck
which is
you,
the
rich academic.
and I
I'm
go
a
to
blogger.
Sci-Hub which is the way around it all and they didn't have it so I was like hello professor please send me your paper. She was so nice and she sent it to me and I'm like this is so cool.
Did you Venmo
Okay.
for like $20?
I should. Totally different story. Okay, another hypothetical for you. I don't think we talked about this. You may have to like tell me if we did this last week because I have
don't
no
remember
memory
last
anymore.
week.
Okay, here's the story. This takes place in the nation of Latvia.
Okay.
Okay, so here's the story. There's a family, Jehovah's Witnesses. They have a child. The child needs heart surgery.
Mhm.
Now, if you live in Latvia, they have universal health care and they would cover that operation.
Mhm.
And so normally they would say, oh no, this child has a problem. Child needs heart surgery. Fine, go to the hospital, get the heart surgery.
Fair.
We'll cover the bill.
Crazy
That's
about
how
heart
it
surgery over
goes.
there.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it happens when you have health care. And so here's what the family said. They said, no, we're not doing that because the universal healthcare system, the heart surgery that we do in our nation requires a blood transfusion. And Jehovah's Witnesses don't do blood transfusions. That's
And there's
against
the
their
rub.
religion. Yeah. So it turns out there's a way to do a heart transplant, heart surgery of this kind, without needing to do a blood transfusion. But like it's a specialized surgery. It requires a certain type of it's a specialized type of surgery. So you needed to go to Poland in order to do it because that was the closest place you could go where doctors actually know how to do this well.
Mhm.
And so the question is, should Latvia's government, their Ministry of Health, are they required to pay for this family to go to Poland to have a surgery that comports with their religious beliefs about blood transfusions? Or can the Ministry of Health say, no, we gave you the option of doing it here. There was nothing wrong with you doing it here, except basically you had some irrational belief about the surgery that has nothing to do with the quality of it.
Sure.
And we're not paying for your joyride to Poland. I should say the family did travel to Poland. They did have the surgery and the kid is actually doing okay. So that's nice. But they sued the Ministry of Health in Latvia saying you need to reimburse us for the costs of our trip, not any excess, but just the base cost for the trip and the surgery, because that's how universal healthcare works. And the nation of Latvia said, we're not covering this because you could have gotten the surgery here. And if you want something special, go for it, but we're not covering it. So this is the lawsuit. And this is where I was thinking about this without kind of seeing how this played out. And I couldn't figure out what I wanted to see.
I don't know.
Yeah.
This is quite the trolley problem you've set up in front of us.
I know. Because part of me is like, oh, I want the kid to be okay. But he would have been okay if he stayed at home in Latvia and gotten a surgery there. It's this irrational belief that, nope, you can't do surgery the way you want to do it. You got to do it with these new rules I'm putting in your way that has nothing to do with the quality of the medical care. It's like, why should we reward them for having these stupid ideas? Yeah, please.
Here's what I think the only... Is this fair? Okay, I'm going to talk myself through it and decide what I think when I'm done talking, okay? My thought would be that Latvia would reimburse what the cost of the surgery would have been if they did a regular
and
surgery.
Anything excess the family has to pay on their own.
Exactly. That would be including travel and things like that. That's my thought, because
I think that makes perfect sense as a compromise. I think only because I'm looking at the lawsuit, like that wasn't the option we were talking about.
Sure.
But you're right. I think that would be a fair compromise right there. They sued the government, and basically all the judges that they came across in Latvia ruled against them. So they took it to what's called the European Court of Justice, let's say the European Supreme Court. And the 5 justices basically issued a ruling in the family's favor. But that doesn't mean they won. What they said is, okay, you got to take this back to the Supreme Court of Latvia, and the Supreme Court has to say this. There is an acknowledgement that in Latvia, religious discrimination is forbidden. So the court has to acknowledge that. And there are some exceptions. Like, there is a way to say we're not covering your costs if certain things are happening.
Sure.
They have to, like, if the Latvian Supreme Court says the decision not to pay for this was a regular thing we would have done in other situations, then the Ministry of Health can get away with it. If the Supreme Court says, no, you basically only punish them for religious reasons, and it was, you broke the law that way, then you got to rule against them. I know it's like a fine point, and some of you, I know I didn't even explain that great, but basically the question is, the Supreme Court of Latvia has to decide, did the Ministry of Health make its decision to say no, because it was absolutely necessary, because if they said yes to this family, it would drain the system. And then maybe you can say we made it and it has nothing to do with religion. It's that they wanted special treatment and we can't allow that in this situation. And if you can justify that, then the country wins and the family does not.
So it's back to them. Precedent on that.
The ball is in the Latvian Supreme Court's case. I just found it, like you said, you put it well. It's a trolley problem when it comes to religious issues here, because I don't know how to say no to this family without being heartless, but I also don't think we should be making exceptions just for some weird rule that these people imposed upon themselves.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like, it's not heartless if, like, the kid doesn't get the surgery. It's not because mean doctors wouldn't do them. It's because their parents wouldn't allow that.
Yeah. Yes, that's it. Mm-hmm.
I think this is kind of an interesting ethical dilemma because there is no outcome I could see that I would think to myself, that is so unfair. Like, I don't think there is a right or wrong answer, which I feel like so much of what we deal with in the US, like when we have problems like this, are like, either we can follow the law or we can do what you feel like because God told you. Like, those feel like two choices. Right. So it's kind of,
you want to discriminate, go right ahead.
Right, exactly. So it's very interesting to me here's what I'm excited about, knock on wood, the post-Trump era is like, we can maybe spend more of our time discussing like moral and ethical dilemmas, and instead of just saying like, Pence hates gay people again, remember? Like, right. I'm excited to be able to dig into topics that are not about Donald Trump.
Well, okay, so let's do that. So here's this week, the U.S. Supreme Court, now with Amy Coney Barrett, they heard a case about religious discrimination. It's called Fulton versus City of Philadelphia. And here's the basic setup here. For years, the City of Philadelphia gave money to a group called the Catholic Social Services, because it's a foster care agency. They place children in homes, and let's assume they do a good job of it. But in 2018, the City of Philadelphia stopped giving them money. Why did they do that? Because the Catholic group said, we are not going to put children in the home of gay couples.
Cool.
And so the city said, well, we don't allow discrimination in our city. Mm-hmm. So you're breaking, like, we can't give you taxpayer money for doing this. And the Catholic Social Services is saying, you're punishing us. That's religious discrimination. That's the gist of what this argument is about. So, like, assuming they did nothing else wrong, is it okay for them to discriminate while receiving this money? And by the way, one of their arguments in court this week was that we haven't actually discriminated against anyone because no gay couple has come to us saying they want to use us for foster care home placement.
Okay,
to which the response is, well, you're Catholic Social Services. The attorney representing the city was like, if you had a sign saying no Baptists allowed on your door, don't be surprised when Baptists don't show up at your door.
Yeah, Yeah. I feel like that's like how Trump is like, how come I'm not getting any mail-in votes? Well, you've spent 6 months saying you don't want mail-in votes.
Right.
It's
That's
just the
exactly it.
consequences of your talk, bud.
When they were doing the oral arguments this week, one question that came up is, well, if you want to the Catholic group, you want to discriminate against these same-sex couples because it's your religious beliefs and you don't want to be punished for them, why should you be allowed to discriminate against interracial couples the same way?
Mm-hmm.
And the Catholic group's lawyer said, well, no, that would never be okay. Why not? Because the government has an obligation to stop racial discrimination. To which the liberal justices said, okay, so you're saying it's okay for the government to step in to stop racial discrimination, but anti-gay discrimination then is okay? And of course, they have no response to that.
Oh my god, this is like Friends, Je m'appelle Claude, beep boop. Do you know that episode? Did you watch
I have no idea what the hell you were talking about.
There's a very good episode, and it's memed a lot, that Phoebe is trying to teach Joey French.
Oh, okay.
And she says, Je m'appelle Claude. And he goes, bleu, 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 vert. And that is, and she does like a je m'appelle Claude, je m'appelle Claude. Blah, 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 blah. Like that's what they're doing. Like they have all the pieces in place. They're just refusing to like make it into like a cohesive.
That was the weirdest way to make that exact point.
I just really,
but I appreciate it. That's good.
French.
Neil Katyal, the lawyer representing the city, also said that if you let the Catholic group get money for even though they're discriminating, what's also stopping them from saying we can't place children in the home of Baptists or Muslims or any group whose religious views go against theirs too? Like, if you allow them to get away with anti-gay discrimination because it's their religious belief, where does that slippery slope take us?
Right.
And so here's the thing. We can have a discussion about the merits or lack thereof of this argument, but it's a 6-3 conservative court. I mean, I feel like we already know what the decision's going to be. The court's obviously, in my mind, going to say, of course it's discrimination. The city can't say no to a Catholic group just because they have Catholic beliefs. So let the taxpayer money go to them. And I don't know what to do with that. I know the outcome. I can't count on the court to take any of it. They're going to give less thought to this than we just did, and we don't know what the hell we're talking about.
And I bet they won't quote Friends at all.
They will not. So what do you do with that? I don't know how to tell people, I don't want to see faith-based discrimination get rewarded by taxpayers. Again, the Catholic group is free to be bigots and they can be racist all they want with their own money, but they shouldn't be rewarded government contracts if they're gonna not promise to obey the rules.
Yeah, this Supreme Court is going to be rough stuff.
It will be. I'm trying to go to non-election stories because I know everyone's just inundated with that this week. So here's slightly off pace one. I don't know if we talked about this last week. There is a Christian preacher named John Piper, very conservative, very women have their
Piper.
Yes. Okay. Women have their place. It's that sort of dude. All right.
Sure.
He said a lot of crazy shit. He recently gave a sermon lecture last week, and he was talking about politics. So you would expect a guy like that to say, we got to vote for the godly candidate, wink, wink, Donald Trump. He did not say that. What he basically said, I'm going to try to paraphrase this, is he said Joe Biden is pro-choice, so Christians cannot vote for him. He also said Donald Trump's personal behavior, his boorishness, his sexism, is not sexism, they don't care. But all the other stuff Donald Trump does.
He swears sometimes.
He swears sometimes. He's a bad dude, even if I like what he does politically. And he said, I can't vote for that guy either. So he basically said, as a Christian, I'm not voting for either of these guys. Right in Jesus. I think he said he's not voting for anyone in particular.
What does that mean?
Which was kind of surprising to me coming from Piper.
Yeah.
But so he basically didn't give an endorsement of Trump. And again, this is a fairly influential, very conservative Christian dude. But here's why I bring this up. it turns out he has also delivered in recent months, maybe, he gave a convocation address, like a speech at Liberty University, Jerry Falwell's former home. He gave a speech there. And like convocation is the thing all students have to go to. Well, after he gave his non-endorsement, they pulled that video from their like records on Liberty's website and YouTube channel. Like you can't see it anymore.
Wow, they scrubbed it. Did you get a whatever you do?
Like did I get the video anyway? Yeah. I didn't get this video, but I didn't particularly care for it. I think the story was just the fact that they removed it. But the surprising thing is like Jerry Falwell Jr. is not even there anymore. He's the guy who would have said, "You're not on the Trump side, like I'm going to punish you for it." But he's not there, and yet the school is still acting like they are in the pocket of Trump.
Interesting.
And that's the thing that surprised me. Like, Falwell hasn't left Liberty no matter what lawsuits are going, no matter how he resigned or fired him. Like, he is still very much present in their culture. Oh, by the way, total side note, someone pointed this out on Twitter. If you look at a map of Virginia and you look at Lynchburg, where Liberty University is located.
I always forget it's called
Lynchburg. It's a very, very small district right there. It's surrounded by red districts in Virginia, but Lynchburg, that part itself is blue. They voted for Joe Biden more than they voted for Donald Trump.
What?
Which was also funny because it looks like a pool.
Yeah. Wait.
Yeah.
Wait.
Realize Lynchburg is a college town with Liberty University, but they also have like other people there too. And again, college towns in general are going to be more progressive.
Of course,
I'm not saying it was I'm not saying it was a Biden blowout, but it was like 52% or something.
It's not like fucking Berkeley. It's more conservative than most. That's wild. That's truly a wild revelation.
And I'll give you this one, and then we'll call it.
Okay,
this was a story that came up just yesterday, I believe. There is a famous young hipster pastor. Like, think of a hipster pastor in general. What are you envisioning?
Oh, God, I love this game. Okay, it's top down.
And I'll tell you if you're right when it comes to this dude.
Ooh, I'm very excited. Okay, so starting from the top down, he's a white dude.
Yes.
He has like that high and tight haircut.
He does.
Okay. I don't know if I want to take a swing at this, but does he have one earring?
I need to find a picture. I can't tell. Okay. I won't give you a confirmation on that.
Okay. I'm picturing a guy who's wearing like he's like a slender guy. He's kind of built.
Yes.
Snug V-neck.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus is my homeboy or something more not.
I wouldn't put it past him.
Before. He has one sleeve of tattoos.
He does have tattoos on both arms.
Okay, I was taking a swing at that.
Yep.
Anywhere
leather jacket.
Jacket. Does he wear Stu or Vans? Chucks or Vans?
He has maybe been featured on Sneakers and Preachers, the Instagram channel.
Oh, I forgot rich people don't wear Chucks and Vans. Sorry. Oftentimes off because my cheesecakes have defrosted. Excuse me.
That's the whitest thing I have heard today.
It's been a hard week, Hammond.
He also, while you were doing that, he also ministers to people like Justin Bieber. He's Bieber's pastor. So the guy I'm talking to...
I was definitely describing a 35-year-old Justin Bieber.
He's 41, yes. This guy, Carl Lentz, he is employed by Hillsong NYC. It's a mega church where it's basically a rock concert where they throw in Jesus every...
Churches? New York City?
New York City has this mega church, and it's this dude.
Okay.
He's so hipstery Christian that there was a GQ profile of him in 2015. One of the biggest, Carl Lentz, Lentz. And this is one of those churches that also, like, they don't say they're anti-gay, but they are anti-gay. And how do they do that? They say, we love gay people. But then I think in their choir, there was a gay dude who was like dating or married to another gay dude, and he got in trouble. And it was a big scandal because like these people hate talking about how anti-gay they are. Anyway, the head of that church sent an email out this week to the entire Hillsong family that said they fired Carl Lentz, the hipster pastor. And why did they do it? I'm going to read you exactly what it says.
Before you say that,
yeah.
I just want to say I looked it up and I was pretty close. A couple major misses were the ironic, dorky, like 1970s glasses frames, and a couple woven bracelets around his right wrist, which is like,
Oh, yeah, you
that's
missed.
not me. I should
Shouldn't have missed
have
that.
that one. I bet he plays guitar. I'm gonna find out. Go ahead.
That's entirely possible too.
He cheated on his wife.
He cheated on his wife. You did. Well, what it said in the message, that's okay. What it said in the message, they didn't say this in the letter. Here's the letter. This action has been taken following ongoing discussions in relation to leadership issues and breaches of trust, plus a recent revelation of moral failures.
Failures.
Then they didn't say anything after that. And it's like, really? You're just going to leave that one hanging? Did he abuse a child? Is he secretly gay and you found out? What's the deal? Because he's married and has 3 kids.
Moral failure is a wide berth. Like that.
It really is.
Thing.
It wasn't until the next day that Lentz himself posted on Instagram that, I forgot the wording he used, but he had an affair or something and he's reconciling and he's in the process of that, but he's going to step down from his church. And we've said this before, like, I don't care about this guy's personal life. Like, let him do his thing and he can deal with his issues personally and privately, and it's nobody else's business. But again, for the church to just, it felt like they were, I don't know, both shoving him under a bus by being so vague about it. And also, I'm totally not surprised that a guy like this, who is hyped up as the young, cool Christian, totally doesn't live up to that hype after all.
Oh, yeah. He's getting training bras thrown at him every day.
Right, exactly.
Any guy who's in the public spotlight is probably good. Not probably, but whatever.
Like,
whether you're a fancy pastor or whether you're a rock star, like, it's the same treatment of people around you.
Yeah. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if this has an effect. Like, the one thing that I noticed when I'm reading articles about this issue is that a lot of younger Christians who liked this guy and became Christians because of this guy, they were troubled by the fact that this guy didn't live up to their expectations, which, yes, that's how these things play out. Mm-hmm. But also, I don't know, I feel like also when it comes to the sort of scandals we've heard of Christian preachers, this felt strangely like low key. Mm-hmm. Like, after all the Franklin Graham stuff, it's like, oh, this is what you like, whatever. Get off my homepage.
Yeah.
Let me go back to Becky Falwell. There's more drama there. That's it. As we speak, there's still no announcement, so I'm good.
I was kind of hoping that they would call it while we were recording. I think that would have been.
I've been thinking about that for a while. I'm like, should I do this right now? Should I go for a walk because it's such a nice day outside? I'm like, no. I've been waiting for the moment that they announce it. And now it's been 4 days and I haven't moved.
Yeah, it's paralyzing, isn't it? Like, you. And it's funny.
It's been 4 years that we've been holding in this moment, and I don't even have anyone to, like, my wife's here somewhere, but like, you can't like celebrate. I want to be at a gathering of people where we can just celebrate and be like, yay, it's done. He won. This is what I was hoping for 4 years ago when people went out to places and I was still doing exactly the same thing. Like, no one was around me 4 years ago either, but like, I just want that burst of Twitter-dom for a minute where everyone's just like, it happened, and it's been denied for days.
Listeners, now you know, even Hemant craves human contact sometimes.
That's not even true. It's the idea of it. I like the idea of it. If you told me right now there's no COVID and we're having a party to celebrate this, I'd be like, maybe later. But I appreciate the invite. So. That was about 12 years ago.
It was 4 years ago, and it was my birthday. God, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Do you think? I mean, I was going to ask you what you think is going to happen. None of us fucking know. And you've been saying we're going to get results every 5 minutes.
I have been. I'm sorry.
Night.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think here's what I think will happen. They will announce this at some point. When that happens, and what at some point,
it's taking that I'll announce it someday.
after a day or two of enjoying that, I think here's where the focus needs to go. It needs to go on how you win the Senate in Georgia, and it also needs to go on how the hell do you I wouldn't say fix. You can't fix the stuff Trump did. Not anytime soon. But how do you get anything accomplished? How do you hold them accountable for all the shit they did? Because again, I know this is cliche, but if Obama did any of the stuff Trump did, it would have been huge. But how do you make sure that doesn't happen? And how do you hold the people accountable for it? Because like you said, if you just let them off the hook and say, well, we better not do that again, it doesn't fix anything. They need to be held accountable for especially if they broke the law and not just broke a norm. So I don't know. I think that's where the focus needs to be. But for us, for progressive types, it has to be, okay, we need to win those 2 Senate seats, and we have to figure out how to do that. And by the way, this surprised me too, because I thought Alaska's Senate seat was totally out of reach, because it's 2-1 right now for the Republicans, and it's Alaska. Of course it's going Republican. And yet it's not out of grasp either. And North Carolina has a lot of ballots, mail-in ballots still to come. So it's I don't know, but let's assume you lose both of those. You need those 2 Senate seats to get anything done. So make that happen. I think I saw someone put it well online, which is right now I want to be yelling at Joe Biden and being mad at him, and I can't because he hasn't won yet. So I need him to be a winner so I can be an asshole to him and make him do more liberal things.
Yeah,
and I'm craving that. Let me be mad at the right people.
I'm so very, very tired of feeling defensive about everything, and I'm excited to feel like we can be proactive, because these last 4 years, it's just been holding back a tide of garbage, right? We can't get anything done positively because they're trying to take away all of our gains. It's been
if Republicans are controlling the Senate, then nothing gets done, and then Republicans will blame the fact that nothing can get done on Joe Biden being really bad at this. That's their playbook. So
Donald Trump did fuck all during his presidency.
Presidency, yeah. All right, we'll come back next week when we still won't have a winner, and we will discuss this all over again.
Man, I'm so tired.
That's okay. We could skip the ending for this week if you want. Where do we find you? Where do we find you? I'll fill it in. You get what you need. You could find me at Hemant Mehta on Twitter. Go to friendlyatheist.com. You could find Jess at Blueberry, BLUEBURIE. Go to Bitches Get Stitched Done on Etsy. What else is there?
I'm not selling. You can
You're
get
not selling anything.
Stuff anymore. If you want a special request, maybe, but it's definitely not. I was very stressed out and very tired. Email us.
The moment we end this, they're going to announce the winner. Just saying.
Oh my God, that's exactly what's going to happen. But that's okay. Oh, I mean, listen, we are in a decent position. I would rather be us than Trump's group.
Yeah.
No, we are in. I'm cautiously saying it will be okay. We will do our best to get through it, and we'll do our best to help each other get through it. And I don't know, I cannot believe it's fucking Friday night and I don't know who the president is.
We can go back to 2000. It could be December and you don't know who the president is.
I was 14. I didn't know what the fuck was going on. All right, buddy. Sorry, none of your predictions about when this is going to get called was correct. So
damn it.
I was
I'll live.
To him, do we need to record Saturday morning? Because it's getting
And the answer is, I think tomorrow's going to be the first day all week. I'm going to try to sleep in a little bit. So that's why we're not doing anything in the morning.
Oh yeah, because I really definitely wanted to go right. I was 6:30 call.
Yeah, I know.
There, makeup on.
Well, normally I'd be coaching a team on a Saturday morning, but it's all online this year. So boo.
We're getting into speech season.
I know.
Oh
it's
man.
All right. I'll just be at a computer again all day.
Stay strong. We're gonna be fine. We'll do it. We're doing our best. Don't stress yourself out. Eat some cheesecake.
Have fun if you get to celebrate. Hope we all do soon.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy the victory.
Yeah, and if everything shakes our way, just take a minute to enjoy it. Deserve it.
Yes. All right. We'll talk to you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.